Once you start your career as a software developer, you need to keep upskilling yourself. Often people ask me, how do I upskill myself? What kind of tools and techniques I use for learning? So in this video, I would like to share what is the process I usually follow for learning any new technologies. And also, I have asked people, do they have any questions regarding upskilling themselves, or what are the challenges they face while learning? There are many interesting questions around how to upskill, and also I have asked the same question on LinkedIn, and there are many interesting questions as well. So in this video, I'm going to answer most of these questions. I consolidated all these questions both on my YouTube channel and LinkedIn. So I'm going to try to answer all of these questions for you. First, let us understand why should we learn, because we may need to pick a different approach for different reasons. Usually, you may need to learn some new skills for your current project, or maybe for the next project, or maybe you are looking for a new job and you realize that people are asking for certain skills which you don't have right now, so you may want to learn those new skills. Or you may have some free time and you would like to learn some new technologies so that they may be helpful for your upcoming work. So whatever the reason could be, we want to learn some new technologies. But we all want to learn things very quickly, right? And like this kid here, he is grabbing all the knowledge from the book and then directly pouring into his brain. Unfortunately, we don't have such technologies where you can simply learn things very quickly. There is no magic tricks like that. Okay, it will take time. But the problem is there are way too many things to learn. These days, software development is not that easy. There are way too many technologies to learn. So how to learn them? The thing is, you need to realize that there is no way one can simply learn every technology out there. It's not going to happen. There are way too many technologies. But most of us feel like I want to be a full stack developer or T-shaped developer. Personally, I feel full stack developer is a kind of a very vague term. Everyone has their own definition of what is a full stack developer. But to me, T-shaped developer is a kind of a very clear, where you have very expert level skills on few technologies and have good enough skill set on wide range of other technologies. So most of the times this is perfectly fine to be a T-shaped developer, to be a really good developer. There are different skill levels like novice, advanced beginner, competent, proficient, and expert. At any given point of time, I may be a novice to some technology, whereas I am competent with some other technology. And maybe I have expert level skills on some other technology. So based on my current skill set, I need to choose a different strategy for upskilling myself to the next level. So next, I am going to share my learning process where I am a completely new to some technology and I want to go from novice to competent level. Whenever I want to learn any new technology, this is the process that I usually follow. And the goal is to go from novice to competent. And whenever I come across any new technology or any new library that I want to learn, first I add it to my backlog. For that, I usually use tools like Trello or Notion. Earlier, I used to use Trello a lot. So here is how it looks like, where you can create a board and then keep adding cards that represents what you want to learn. And it can be anything specific like publish Maven artifacts to Maven Central using JReleaser, kind of a very specific thing that I want to learn, or it can be like a big thing like learn Rust. Okay, so anything that I want to learn, first I will add it to my backlog. But recently I started using Notion. Notion has plenty of features, so we can also create similar board view here, and you can keep adding what are the technologies that you want to learn in your backlog. Once I have a backlog of items that I want to learn, I'll pick the most important topics based on the priority. Let's say we have a list of items that I want to learn in my backlog. So if I am trying to learn something for my current project, obviously that will be the highest priority and I try to learn that first. If that is not the case, I can pick up something that might be useful for me down the line in the 6 months or in 1 year. So if even there is some technology that I am really very interested to learn right away, maybe I'll pick that as well. So based on the priority, I'll pick some of the technologies that I am interested and then move it to my priority lane. So once I have items in my priority lane, I pick only one or two from that list. So here, once I have a list of technologies that I want to learn on the priority basis, I pick only one or two, not more than two at any cost. Because if you are keep juggling on multiple things, there is a good chance that you don't learn any of them properly, and you may feel overwhelming, and there is a good chance that you will get burned out if you do that for a long period of time. Once I decided on the topic that I want to learn, I'll move that from priority to in progress lane. And then I'll try to find good resources to learn that topic. Basically, I'll Google what are all the available resources to learn that topic, be it official documentation or blog posts or YouTube videos. I'll try to gather all the available resources for learning that topic. And then I'll make sure that I won't lose them. I usually either bookmark them in my browser, or I use tools like Pocket, where you can use Pocket and you can install browser extension as well. For example, if I come across any interesting article or YouTube video, I'll simply click on this and then it will be bookmarked. I can refer it later. So I never lose any good resources that I come across, and I make sure I'll bookmark them. So here, if you take a look at my bookmarks, so here for learning Go language, I have a bunch of good resources, and for DevOps I have another set of links to various interesting resources. Like that, I never lose any link to any of the good resources that I come across. Once I gather the resources to learn from, I'll make a list of features I want to learn on that topic. It is very important to do, because let's say I have a task here like publish Maven artifacts to Maven Central using JReleaser. This is a very clear goal I have here. So it is very clear what I need to do for achieving this. But for example, take this learn Rust, right? It is very vague what I want to learn. So there can be a million things about Rust to learn from, right? So if I simply keep it like learn Rust, there is no way to say, okay, I learned Rust, because I don't have a definitive list of things that I want to learn about Rust. So basically what I do, I make a list of specific things that I want to learn about that topic, if that topic is too big. Otherwise it will be like you can spend months and months and still feel like whether you don't know whether you learned enough about the topic or not. So in order to avoid that kind of a feeling, I make a list of things that I want to learn about that particular topic, so that I have a kind of a checklist where I'll go and learn about all these topics one by one, and then I can check, okay, I learned all these things. So I have a good enough knowledge about Rust. Okay, so it is very important. Otherwise you will have feeling that you don't know whether you learned enough about it or not. So once I gather good resources to learn from, and then I make a list of specific features that I want to learn on that particular topic, I go ahead and start learning it. So it can be a book, or it can be a video, or it can be official documentation. But the thing is, as I read, I practice in the sense I try to create a sample application, and then I try to implement whatever I just learned. So this is where most of the people do mistakes. Like they read a book from cover to cover and then they don't practice it. And just imagine, like if you are reading a book or watching a video course without practicing, and if you are not using that whatever the technology that you learned immediately in your project or so, it is very easy to forget what you just read in a couple of weeks. So whatever the time you spent, it may not be really helpful for you. So I don't even, like suppose I am reading a book, I don't even wait for entire book. I don't even wait for the entire chapter. As I read through the sections, whenever I read about a particular feature, and I kind of understand that, and immediately I go ahead and write a sample application. So as this process going on, I create a whole lot of small sample applications to demonstrate one particular feature of the technology. Okay, it is kind of a very interesting why we should we create a separate application, right? If you don't create a separate application, there is a chance that you mess up with other features, and then it may not work, and you will end up debugging some other issue instead of focusing on that particular feature. So I usually go ahead and create a lot of small applications demonstrating one specific features. Okay, and as this process going on, I take notes. This is utmost important. Otherwise, it's like you read a book and then you don't use it in the upcoming days. You will definitely forget about this. Whatever you learn, you will forget about it. So it is very important where you take notes, and that need not be any formal process or anything like that. Suppose I am reading a book, I simply take a paragraph or a word, a sentence. I just copy those very important bullet points and then keep notes out of it. Why it is important to take notes is, let's say I read a book, entire book, maybe 300 or 400 pages, and then I take notes. Hardly that can be say 10 or 15 pages. And even if I don't use the technology immediately in the coming days, probably I may want to use the technology later, 6 months late. Okay, so then I don't have to go through that book, the 400 page book again. I just have to scan through that 10 or 15 page notes, and then I can again go through my sample applications, and then I can recollect what I have learned. If I don't have that notes, right, I again have to go on read the whole book again. So that is why it is very important to take notes while you read any technology. And as I said, I don't separate this process of reading and then doing hands-on. I do it parallelly. I read a section and I do hands-on exercise on that one. Once I completed reading the book or watching videos, I try to apply all those learnings in a non-trivial sample application. So far I have a bunch of small sample applications that demonstrate a single feature by feature. But here I would like to apply all those learnings together on a non-trivial sample application. It's kind of a beyond hello world or a simple CRUD type of application, so that I'll get some realistic hands-on experience on how it feels to use the technology in a bigger project. Okay, and then along with it I try to refine the notes that I have been taking on. Maybe I was simply copy pasting few important notes into my notes, and then I may be copying some code snippets, important code snippets. So here I kind of refine that notes and make it kind of a more readable. And usually I use markdown files for taking notes. The advantage is I can turn those simple markdown files into a beautiful looking website using tool called MK Docs. So for example, I have taken notes using markdown files, and then I put together all of them at one place, and then I can turn all those markdown files into this nice looking website using MK Docs tool. So here, for example, while learning Linux, I took a lot of notes, and then I simply add whatever the commands I learned and whatever the topics I learned. So like this, I keep adding the notes as I learn various things. And also, for example, when it comes to Java, it's kind of a very rich ecosystem of libraries and frameworks, right? So whenever I come across some interesting library or framework, I take a note of it, and then I'll keep adding to this documentation, so that maybe at later point of time I can refer and then learn more things. Also, like I have been using Maven in most of my projects, and then I have used quite a lot of different plugins. So I make a note of all those plugins that I usually use. It comes very handy. For example, how to configure certain configuration properties, things like that. So here is a big list of all those Maven plugins that I have been using for several years. So like this, I take notes so that I can quickly refer whenever I need them. Okay. And also, as I was saying, for example, a while ago I was trying to learn about test containers, so I have created this repository, and then as I learn one particular concept, I try to create a sample and then use that whatever the feature I learned. For example, this is a small application where I use basic features of test containers, and then this is another small application where I can use test containers and create a container from a Docker file. Okay, and how to use Docker Compose along with the test containers, and how I can use test containers in a Spring Boot RabbitMQ application. So like that, every feature that I learn, I try to create a small sample application demonstrating that particular feature. Okay, once I done that, I also mentioned that I will use all of those features that I learn in a non-trivial application, right? So here is DevZone is another repository that I have, and it is kind of a kind of a realistic application where I have a Spring Boot application to maintain the bookmarks and all, and I have applied all those learnings in this application. I have written performance tests using Gatling. I have written end-to-end tests using Playwright, and I have written some deployment scripts using Terraform. So basically, whatever I learn, I kind of try to apply all those learnings in a non-trivial application so that I'll get some good hands-on experience on those technologies. So this is the process I usually follow for learning any new technology. So even if I don't use the technology immediately, still I have notes, and I have a bunch of small sample applications and a non-trivial applications that I have applied all those learnings. So even if I don't use the technology immediately, maybe even after a few months or even a year later, I can quickly go through those notes, and then I can go through those sample application. I can quickly brush up on those concepts. So once I done all this, I'll move on to next topic. So this is how my typical learning process looks like. I have gathered all the questions that are asked on my YouTube post as well as on my LinkedIn post as well. So I'll try to answer them here. So the first question is, how do you pick a technology to learn? Basically, if I am trying to learn some technology for my current project needs, obviously that will be a high priority. Otherwise, I'll try to first eliminate some of the things that I don't really want to learn or interested in. For example, I am not really interested in blockchain or Web3 technologies like that. Okay, I don't pay much attention to those technologies, and then I kind of avoid hype. These days, everyone starts saying that, oh, this technology is the next big thing, that technology is the next big thing, things like that. Okay, so I try to avoid those hype, and then try to see, is it going to be really useful and going to be adopted by community or not, and then based on that I'll try to pick the technology. And the next question is, from which source, documentation, books or videos? It actually depends on the topic that I want to learn. For example, if I want to learn something that is kind of a very conceptual, then I prefer watching through videos, because kind of some people can explain in a graphical manner very clearly, and that's what I would prefer. But if I'm learning some technology which requires kind of a very hands-on experience, then I most likely prefer to go with documentation or books, because Sometimes I'm not completely new to the concept or the technology. I might have already have some decent understanding on the core concepts, and I want to quickly go to the topic where I don't have that much of idea. So in that case, it is hard to do that with videos, but I can quickly glance through the topics in a book or documentation, and then skip all the non so interesting parts and then directly jump to the interesting part. Okay, so it depends on the topic that I want to learn. And the next question is how to learn multiple things at once. This is something that I try to avoid at all. Sometimes we may have to learn multiple things, but I try to limit them to the max or two things at a time. Beyond two, it will unlikely you are going to learn very well on those concepts. Okay, if you are picking more than two, there is a good chance that you will not learn any of them properly, and most likely you will get burnt out. Okay, and the next question is how do you stay focused on what you are trying to learn? Again, this is kind of related to that, and the problem with juggling between multiple things or keep looking at other buzz is kind of a, let's say I already picked up some technology to learn, and then I come across some other interesting thing on, let's say, Twitter or LinkedIn. So I kind of get tempted to jump onto that and then explore it. But if it is going to take only say 30 minutes or 1 hour or max 2 hours, I might do that. But if I feel like it is going to take more than 2 hours, I don't immediately jump on that new topic. I'll simply add it to my backlog and then come back to it later. The next question is how do you manage to learn and maintain proficiency in multiple programming languages simultaneously? As I explained in the beginning, like at the same time we may be a novice to some language, but we are having competent enough knowledge on another language, and we may be a proficient or expert in some other language. So in my case, I have been working with Java for a long time, so I would consider myself as a proficient in that Java, Spring Boot language and frameworks, whereas I know just enough knowledge, and I have used Go language in one of my previous projects, so I know how to get things done in Go language. So I would consider myself as competent in with Go language, whereas I am completely new to, let's say, Rust. I don't have a clue what it is and how to do things in that. So as I said, you don't have to be proficient in every language or every framework. For example, by role, earlier I was like a tech lead or architect, so I need to know a little bit about Kubernetes, but there is a whole DevOps team there to take care of all the administration, deployment process and everything. But I need to know a little bit about Kubernetes. So what I did, I learned just enough things for understanding how Kubernetes work. Okay, I don't have to be an expert in everything that I learn. So that is how I see it, like right away. If I say I know 2 or 3 languages, that means probably I'm kind of a T-shaped developer, as I said, right? In few technologies, I have more expertise than other technologies. And the next question is how to allocate time to actually do hands-on. As I explained in my process of learning, I don't separate learning and doing hands-on. I do it together. So I don't wait for reading the whole book or watching the whole video course. I do it section by section. As soon as I learn a concept, I immediately practice it. Otherwise, it's going to be like a novel reading. It's not going to work. We learn things and forget very easily if we do not use them for some time. How to keep things persistent. I think I have talked about it in detail while going through the process. So basically, if we don't take notes or if we don't do hands-on while learning, you are going to forget that, and you need to include hands-on as part of learning, and you should definitely take notes. Otherwise, it's easy to forget things. And the next question is, how do I know if I have read enough about a topic and move on to the next one? Again, I think I have covered a little bit about it, because if I don't scope of my learning, for example, as I mentioned here, learn Rust. If I just leave it to that, I will never feel that I know Rust, because I don't have a check boxes saying that okay, I know these concepts in this language. A language is kind of a version where you spent years and years and you still figure out some things that you have never know about, right? So that is the reason you should make a list of particular topics that you want to learn. Then once you go through all of them, you are good enough with that particular topic. If there is anything beyond that comes while actually using that in your project, you will learn, obviously. Okay, that is okay. You don't have to learn everything about that in one go. And the next question is how to develop the intuitive ability to learn from documentation itself. So again, basically the beginners face this difficulty, like when a junior developer tries to learn some framework or library, and if the official documentation is not good, then it's kind of a little bit difficult to go around. But fortunately, these days you search for any technology, any library or framework, there is a good chance that there are plenty of blog posts or videos available which are beginner friendly, and you should be able to pick it up and then proceed further. Thanks to the open source contributors these days, even most of the open source frameworks and libraries, they have wonderful documentation. And if unfortunately if any of those libraries doesn't have a clear good documentation, I'm sure there could be some blog posts or videos available on that one. And the next question is, books and courses are not covering topics in depth. How to learn topics in depth? This is really interesting and kind of a chicken egg problem, because I have written books and I have been creating videos, so I am kind of very familiar with this problem. When I'm writing a book or creating a video, it is really difficult to create a content that is equally interesting for both beginners and experts. Because if you make it too beginner friendly, when an expert is watching that video or reading that book, they may get bored of those obvious things that they already know of. Whereas if you make it expert friendly, it is kind of for beginners, it's kind of they may not be able to follow along and they may not read or watch the video at all. So it is really difficult. And also I would say there is something else I would like to bring up at this point of time. So I have been making YouTube videos for a while now, and what I noticed is people are willing to watch videos if they are kind of 5 to 8 minutes of length. Beyond that, most of the people are dropping off, like they are not watching beyond 8 minutes or 10 minutes, something like that. But kind of it is a little bit odd, because it is hard to explain complex topics within 8 minutes. So you can try, but sometimes it takes more time to know about those core concepts, especially if they are complex. So kind of I would say people have to increase their attention span and patience, and then watch the videos. That would encourage the content creators to make more videos or write books on those advanced concepts. Otherwise it's like just imagine somebody is making advanced and complex topic videos and people are not watching it, and it's kind of a waste of effort, and obviously they stop making those videos. So yeah, it's up to the people. They have to increase their attention span and patience to watch those videos, especially if they are offering for free, right? And the next question is how you are balancing work life and learning. So basically we all want to have work life balance in our lives, right? But the thing is, at least in the beginning of our careers, we should be willing to spend extra hours for our personal learning. So basically here is how I did it personally. Like I used to spend the usual 8 hours at my work doing the official work, and then I used to spend extra 3 to 4 hours a day for my personal learning. Because of this additional learning, I was able to get official work done within lesser time. For example, I was given a task and it is expected to be completed in say 8 hours, but I was able to do it within 7 hours itself, and then I save 1 hour and I spent that extra 1 hour for my personal learning. So in addition to that, so I was able to spend 4 hours for my personal work and 7 hours for my official work, and I continued doing that. And as I learned more and more concepts, I was able to get official work done within lesser and lesser time. So I reached to a point where I am no more spending after working hours to brush up any of the concepts. I was able to complete my official work within the 5 hours itself, and then I can spend few hours for my personal learning as well. Kind of both employer and me both are happy. I was able to complete the task and I'm able to learn few more things which will help me for working more effectively in the upcoming task as well. So it's a kind of a win-win for both employer and for me too. But the thing is, learning these more technologies is not going to really bring you work-life balance, because unless you learn to say no to the unrealistic timelines, you will never have work-life balance. Okay, that is more important than learning more and more technologies. You have to have the courage to say no to the unrealistic deadlines. I hope this video is helpful, and some of the tools and techniques that I follow might be helpful for you too. Thanks for watching and stay tuned. Bye bye.